Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
And today's episode 144 of Podcast 2 for 1. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way, you're up to date on all future episodes of Podcast 2 for 1, the best place to consume content. And of course, if you didn't know, and let's just be honest, you probably didn't, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Hill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. There they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow!
Kapow! I think I saw on Facebook yesterday, Daniel, or sometime, that Darth Maul Ray Park was at Kapow Comics.
He was at Kapow?
Yep.
I saw a video of him. I saw a video. Levi Agee, who you know. Did you see his story on Facebook of watching him do the twirls? And he's in the middle of it, doing it with a double bladed, and he's like twirling, and one of them flies off and hits like a light and falls down.
Oh no!
It's great. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I wish it was like in a form I could download, but you can't do that to like a Facebook story because it's just hilarious him doing his thing, and then just like one of the blades just floop, like you hear it go floop. Like when they come off, yeah.
Well, did you feel your midichlorians increase at all? You were like within a mile of him in the last couple of days.
I know. I should have. I should have just been like waiting outside there all day, every day.
You should have. I didn't know. I thought he was just going to the Benton location that Travis talked to us about, and I was like, wait, he was at the Kapow
or Pine Bluff? Yeah.
Yes, Pine Bluff. Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, if you're going to come down here, you wouldn't just go to. I mean, there's a lot of other places to hit. So
it makes total sense, and I
wish our sponsors at Kapow Comics had maybe let us know. We could have advertised.
That's true.
We could have had at least 2 to 3 more people there. Come on.
That's true. You could have.
Leaving money on the ground.
Speaking of Star Wars. Oh, there we go.
There you go. Yeah.
I was like, what's the connection we were just talking about? Fucking Star Wars. Speaking of Star Wars, today's episode, Daniel, is about Andor. Now, if you remember, I don't know, about 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 episodes ago, we talked about the very first pilot of Andor season 1. We know that there's going to be 2 seasons total. I think on the onset about 3-4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when they had D23 and they had a different show up from the Americans, all these kind of things. Like, it's going to be like 3 to 5 seasons, and they got to map it all out and everything else. And as they got to get closer and closer to production, and also as the pandemic hit, and then as Diego Luna was kind of like feeling the stress of the schedule, and they had a new showrunner step in. They're like, you know what? Let's condense. We think this story can be condensed down into 2 seasons, which is kind of an odd, like, I don't know. You don't ever hear like 1 season, 2 seasons. You hear like maybe 3 or 5 or 1. Like the odd numbers. Kind of thing.
You're right.
But it kind of feels like they're doing like season 1, season 2, and then you can almost treat Rogue One as the end of the trilogy, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think the first few episodes they were put out to the press, and we kind of heard that the first few episodes are slow, they're kind of world building, but they're really good, they're different, they're kind of like Star Wars for adults. And we only talked about episode 1, and I think we could both come away from positive things, but also kind of feeling that it was slow. And then as we were getting closer to this pod, I was kind of started watching them, and then as we got deeper and deeper, it's like the farther you get into the show and the season, and it's a whopping 12 episodes, right? The farther you get in there, you're like, man, this is good. This is the political stuff that we were getting from the prequel trilogy, but like, deeper, and like, but we're in the time period of the Empire, and like, we're getting the seedy stuff, and there's this thing that's been going around that it's not wrong, and it's the idea that you wouldn't know that this is a Star Wars show unless they kind of told you it was Star Wars, right? You don't see lightsabers, you don't hear mention of Jedi or the Sith or that kind of stuff. Yeah. And honestly, it kind of almost gives one of my only complaints, which is a little spoil. We won't dive too deep right now, but it's almost like it feels like a different universe than Star Wars, because it's almost better than Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I hear you. Yes, it's hard to imagine this existing in theoretically around the same time period as the events of Obi-Wan.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It just feels like the way they talk, and then the way, just everything, the production design, the world. Yes. It's like, it's just like a better version of all the other stuff we were getting. And it almost feels like, it's serious. There's not goofy stuff. There's not really jokes, or at least not any of the undercut moments that don't need to be undercut. Yes. And it's like, oh wow, this feels good. This feels really good. So IGN, I just saw. First of all, who gives a fuck what IGN thinks? But they just gave it their TV show of the year above Better Call Saul, which I'm not sure I agree with, but they gave it like their best TV show of the year, and wow. It's really good, man. I love it. I think it's pretty fantastic, and it's a shame we have to wait 2 years or more for season 2.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think Andor was fantastic. I mean, I think it does take a few episodes to really find its groove, and I would even say that the show peaks a couple episodes before the finale. Like, kind of the best moments of the show happen before the finale.
I agree, actually.
Sometimes, theoretically, that would be bad, right? Like, okay, well, you climax the story or the emotion or the energy, before you ended the season, but it still worked, and the final episodes were still good. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, it was made with a level of intentionality that we have not seen. We've seen a little bit of it in The Mandalorian, but not to this level, honestly. Like, narratively, The Mandalorian can't hold it.
Genres.
They are, but I think there's at times where The Mandalorian has those feelings of Obi-Wan, has those characters that you're like, you don't feel like a real person, like the droid lady, the lady on Tatooine.
I was gonna say, well, in that case, we're only talking about the droid lady.
No, there's more. I mean, I think
don't confuse Mandalorian with Boba Fett. Also, they feel.
Well, no, you're right. Yeah, no, that's a different thing. But you're right, and the Mandalorian's probably the least one to compare it with. But yeah, but I still feel like this is what I want from Star Wars. I want well-written characters with good actors and good direction, interesting, nuanced, complicated plots. I want to see the inner workings of the Empire. My favorite thing about this is we're seeing the Empire go from a political kind of, we're the Empire and we're just here to safety, to no, we're just dictators, and we don't care what you think. Like, we're not trying to hide it anymore.
We're what I mean? We're fat cats who we already won, and there's no point in us actually trying on some level because it's the idea of gluttony, and like it's amazing. It's tropes that we've seen in a lot of different things. It's tropes we've seen in tons of movies and throughout history. But it is fun to see it, wrapped around this Star Wars blanket, and we're seeing like how the rebellion really got started to get made, and all those kind of things enforced eventually where Luke Skywalker comes in. And it's one of those things too, like, it gives context in terms of, I felt this a lot in Rogue One, but almost even more so now. Like, Luke Skywalker and all these randos come together, and they have something special about them that gives them the edge up over the Empire, right? It's the hero's journey. Luke can have force powers and everything else. And you get wrapped up in the mystical part of that, and like, oh, he's the hero, he's the cool part. But then, like, you forget about all the people who made sacrifices and who had real troubles and families and died to get Luke Skywalker to throw, to do the run, the what's it called, the Death Star run or whatever. I don't know. I can't think of the name at the moment. But like, and I feel like these people suffered way more than Luke Skywalker ever did. He was like bestowed gifts, and he does it relatively easy compared to someone like Cassian Andor. And I love the idea of these people. And you got this, that's why I think they made a show about Cassian Andor just based on the scene, his first scene in Rogue One, where he shoots that guy, right? It's kind of like, you don't know if that guy is good or bad. You don't know if Cassian Andor is good or bad. And you see a lot of that in this show. I think my favorite character, obviously, Cassian Andor is great, but almost, it's like he is almost a vehicle to see all the other characters, which is Bill Skarsgård. I think he is phenomenal. Stellan Skarsgård. He's phenomenal. Everything he does, I'm always like, man, that guy's an amazing actor. And he, like, his voice, it's so fucking like, this guy is so fucking serious. And like, he's just, I love how he puts on the show with Mon Mothma, And he's just like, he's like, it won't kill 50 soldiers to make this operation go correctly. I'll kill fucking Cassian Andor at the end to make him a martyr and to make the rebellion even bigger. And it's like, I love their conversation with it's freaking Forrest Whitaker's character. I can't even say right now.
Saw Gerrera.
Yeah, Saw Gerrera. And who's been great to see him come back in the animation stuff and to kind of keep populate this character even through Jedi Fallen Order. And it's like, he's in there and they're like, what is this? It's war. It's like, it's almost like when they said war in Star Wars, you're almost like, oh my God, it's like, just say Star Wars, it's like, you almost be like, just do it. I don't care. Say it, But anyway, I can keep bouncing around, but Stellan Skarsgård and you have Andy Serkis come in at the final moments. And I agree with you. My favorite parts were being in this prison with him. I don't know why it was the aesthetic. I think I just also like print escape stories or whatever. Yeah. But I knew immediately when they were building, when you saw them constructing something. Yeah, Kimberly was sitting next to me, and she doesn't care. She couldn't tell you a single Star Wars character name, period, or even what it looks like. And I was like, they're building the Death Star. It's like they're building the Death Star.
That's good. I didn't pick that up, but I loved that moment at the end. That was there any other after credit scenes other than just at the final episode? Because that's the only one I checked.
No, I mean, like I was, I think I let them all play out, but I didn't anticipate. I was just sitting there on my phone, and then it come on. I was like, oh, there's an after credit sequence. I didn't even know, and I'm glad I stuck around for it.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, just to go back, I think Stellan Skarsgård, Luthen, his character is like I think Diego Luna did wonderful, and Cassian Andor is a really fun character to be kind of riding along with all of this and watching his arc grow. Like I think what we're seeing in Cassian is still kind of the beginning of the arc that ends him up where he is like in Rogue One and to accomplish what they do in that. And so I think we're still seeing Cassian develop, and it's doing well. But Stellan Skarsgård comes on the screen and is like the most interesting character that maybe Star Wars has ever had.
It's possible.
Period.
Yeah.
Like movies, television, period. And when I saw him in previews, I think he has just like this kind of like menacing presence, and the way he can look sometimes it's just like, I mean, he was the bad guy in Dune, right?
In
like,
Dune, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So, you know what I mean? So like, I assumed he was going to be a bad guy, just kind of from watching the previews and stuff. And once I realized, he would
also be an amazing Imperial officer. He would be an incredible. God, yes, he'd be the best bad guy ever.
Well, the guy they did get as like kind of the head Imperial officer was the other perfect choice, the guy from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Let's see,
he was great.
Anton Lesser, is that it? Yeah, Anton Lesser. He was
basically. I can't think of it. I'm losing my Star Wars names today. The guy from
Tarkin. He was like the Tarkin.
He was like Tarkin light. You know what I'm saying? Like he was like,
But he felt like that same kind of casting, right? It's not like fucking what's his name from the sequel trilogy. What?
I think he's great. Yeah, he's good. He's a good.
The redheaded dude.
He's good. We've
wasted his character.
They may have wasted his character, but he's a good actor, and he's a good pick for that role.
Okay,
for that particular.
But what I like these old men, because I feel like that also that's what reality is. Like in real life, the old men are the generals that send the young kids to war, right? But
no, okay, I mean, they fixed it. In Rise of Skywalker. They had the guy who's Loki. I can't think of their names today. He was an amazing general.
He was. You're right.
Officer.
He should have been there from the beginning. But yes, he was right.
100%.
A perfect casting in that way too. But yeah, just Stellan Skarsgård. We've already kind of covered it, but I think episode 10 is the best episode of anything Star Wars, probably. Like in sort of episodic content, maybe. But
your boy forgot about Luke Skywalker showing up, but it's okay. We had Luke Skywalker show up.
A Luke Skywalker Gumby showing up. I'm okay with that. But what I'm saying is, like, you're right. The prison sequence was amazing, right?
Sorry. That's pretty funny, Daniel. That's a funny comment.
I appreciate that feedback.
That's why you're on the show. That's why.
Thank you. I can come back again next week. I've earned it.
Good.
But I love the Prison Break. It's amazing. And Andy Serkis, you're right. I mean, I feel like there's no way he's not dead because it's Andy fucking Serkis, and you wouldn't kill him off screen if you didn't have to. And just like, there's no way he's not dead.
I mean, obviously there's
no way he's dead.
There's every theory ever been like, man, what's his name? It's what's Andy Serkis' name
in the show?
It's
his character. It's Kino Loy.
There's like, I mean, in how likely is it that Kino Loy was captured and then his body was used to help bring back the Emperor, and you end up making Snoke? I mean, you know, I mean, like, seems very plausible, you know.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, just because it's the same voice actor.
Well, it's the same actor. I mean, like
he did Snoke
voice? He was Snoke. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in Force Awakens. I mean, he was in all three. He did a little voice in Rise, but he was, you know, Snoke. He mocap Snoke. I mean, he was.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, I
kind of hope they don't do that, but
they don't have to.
I just want him to be a badass, like, rebel that, like, you know what I mean?
10, 20 years, and someone's going to write that story because they can. You know, they just teed it up for whoever. But I mean, and he's had interviews coming out already and said, like, I was immediately worried that people would be like, oh, this is just, you know, Snoke, whatever. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, but I was interested by the idea of a new character and get to play two different characters in the Star Wars universe. But when there's that easy of a connection and you don't know what happened to him, I think he'll be back in season 2 as a different, as the same character, but like, you know.
I think he'll probably die in season, like at the climax. I'm guessing season 2 is a lot more rebel activity based on the end of season 1. And I can just see him. I mean, he just seems like a guy that like would be a badass fucking like rebel general. You know what I mean? Like, he's the guy you want leading the troops of the rebel, and he just looks like he has the look of that, just like kind of grizzled and old, but like big. He was surprisingly kind of looked pretty stocky, pretty like big in this.
I mean, honestly, Dan, you're giving me even more credits. Like, I mean, like, what if he's this, you know, face of the rebellion on some level, and then the Emperor, you know, like, look, I'm going to take his body and have it on ice for a little bit and have my exit plan, and like that would maybe could make, you know, those movies feel, you know, maybe 5% better, you know, 5%
maybe
in the overarching canon, you know.
It's not my first pick, but if they do it right, okay. But man, just going back to episode 10 again, I keep getting off track. It's not me. It's me. It's not you. But the speech that Stellan Skarsgård gives to the ISB insider, I'm seeing if I can find his actor's name.
You mean on the best meeting spot ever in Star Wars?
Oh my God, yeah. It looked incredible.
I love, yeah, exactly. And I love how he's like talking to him in the elevator and it opens up and it's like, I'm gonna, you know, which almost makes me like, you just have this whole conversation on the phone in different places.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah,
but it is really interesting and fun and cool how like it opens up and he's there and they're still talking. I liked it. I don't know.
Loved being back on Coruscant and just getting in the depths, because that feels like kind of like cyberpunk and getting into like the dirty alleys and stuff. But the speech he gives when the guy's like, "What have you sacrificed?"
Oh yeah, he's like,
oh my shivers, dude! Maybe one of the best like monologues in all of Star Wars. The line, he's like, "I've made my mind a sunless place," and like just like, oh my God, he had the best lines in the show. He had another amazing one.
He did.
With, I don't know who it was, but he said, "Oppression breeds rebellion." I loved it. And I just loved that his character is the ends justify the means character. Because I think, you know, the version of the rebellion we've had in the past, is always this kind of like pure, like innocent rebellion versus evil, dark empire, right? Like they're clearly the good guys and clearly the bad guys. And that's kind of reflection of how we saw maybe ourselves as Americans at the time in the 70s or like in the 60s, you know, like that was a reflection of how a lot of times we viewed war, right? And I think a more modern understanding is that when there's war happening, everybody's conscience is dirty, right? Like it doesn't matter if you're on the good side, you're doing horrible things that will fuck you up for life, right? And you're having to witness horrible things. You're having to you know, take advantage of people, or, you know, it's like you're having to do things that in any other context, we would abhor such actions in society. We would say that needs to be put away. And so like
the ultimate idea of survival. I mean, it's
yes.
At that,
and then he's doing things like let's make them hate us more. Let's do things to provoke them. Let's not try to keep ourselves secret and just run away from everything. Let's do things to intentionally put people that are working with us in the way so that we can get to better goals beyond them. You know what I mean? And I think
that
feels realistic.
What he does, through the actions of I can't think of the name the place where they do the first heist, which is pretty great. We can even talk about the heist.
And it starts with an A.
Yeah. So, they keep referencing that, so it's like do things like that to then the people who are, probably some of your best officers or your best people to go to prison, and then to be just people, they enact basically like another, almost like another kill order of just like random, be more oppressive, arrest people for doing nothing, right? Just be a communist, be a
double
communist
sentences,
party. Exactly, and then you'll have, and on top of that, you're having them do already nefarious things of build a Death Star for you. It's in the name, the Death Star. But it's like do those things to make people pissed off so they will revolt, which is where we get to in episode 10. But I think there's a lot of interesting conversations. You could have 1,000 different viewpoints on it of like, is he a good character or a bad character? Some people would argue that no, like a Captain America sort of thing, right? Like,
yes,
you need to be good the whole time, and eventually good will win out. It may take longer or whatever, but it will win out. And there's other people that's like, well, that's a rose-colored glasses way of looking at the world, and we need to get our hands dirty so other people don't have to down the line.
Yeah, I think I would say if it was me, I would say I don't think he's good or bad. He's necessary. He's a necessary character for things like the rebellion to happen. And if you look at history, and if you look at things where people have overthrown regimes or overthrown powers from within, or in civil wars or whatever, that's how they start, right? They happen when people are willing to sacrifice and willing to have basically said what he said is like, I've given up all chances at happiness for myself in this life. I've given up any chance to find peace or happiness again. My only purpose is to flame the fires of rebellion. Right.
Which is a wild thing. That's like, it's the same idea of parenthood, where you're doing all these things and, at some level you won't get to see the fruits of your labor. Like you won't get to see your kids kill. You might get like, see your grandkids, your great grandkids, but you probably won't see your great grandkids. Right. But all the things you're doing now, you're doing it in service of the next generation, or at least your generation. And so this idea, like, can you imagine someone who is doing all these horrible things, and it could be over for any second, and they don't really know if what they're doing is going to pay off in any way for anyone down the line? Like that's a wild concept to like put your mind and your brain in for a second. Like it's a wild thing. It's a wild way of living,
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, he in some ways he really did steal the show of the season, and just like he had the best moments. His scenes with Forrest Whitaker, both of them were just their chemistry was just amazing, man. Like it just felt like they knew each other. They didn't trust each other, but they were this playful game of jousting verbally and kind of insulting each other, even though they're both kind of trying to work with each other. It was masterful. Like it was just like, wow, there's two fantastic long storied actors just like acting their asses off in Star Wars. Where's this been?
Yeah. No, across the board, even like I love the stuff with Mon Mothma where she was,
oh my God.
Yeah. Because you see her in A New Hope, you see her, I can't remember if you see her in also Return of the Jedi, right? I can't remember. Does she don't die, does she?
I think she's in all three.
Yeah, I think she is too. And so, and then, we got this actress, to play her in Rogue One. And like, it's almost like they were
this is the same actress from Rogue One?
Yeah, same actress. Yeah,
she's fantastic.
She's amazing, and she had a small bit role in that. Compared to like some of the other characters in Rogue One, she's had an important role, but a smaller role. And now you're getting to see like her, the senator that's in the Senate, which it was also just amazing to, even though we're like in the Empire area and it feels down and gritty, that we get to see the Senate again. Like we get to see the circular, the levitating things.
I love that.
Basically, Revenge of the Sith mainly in all 3 movies, but really Revenge of the Sith. And I kept expecting like the Emperor to show up any second to like do some grandstanding.
I wonder if he'll show up next season 1. I bet they will. I think he will. The actor's still around. He's probably willing to do it. It's just like,
I mean, he come back for what did he come back for recently?
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, but there was something after that. I think it was. It might have been Book of Boba Fett. No, it was Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he was in that. So I mean, like, I think. That tells you something, Disney, that I can't even give when the other show. Right. We should be more excited about than casting Andor, who's only been made for like 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like who just created a character created 5 years ago. But I can't sing the praises for this show enough. I mean, I think that
it hits on all cylinders. The heist sequence has a bunch of amazing characters that are never seen again, except the one Faye Marzi, who plays the Vel, who's kind of the leader, which I thought she was fantastic.
Which is like Motha's cousin or sister?
Yeah. I think cousin. Yeah. I think it's cousin. Yeah. For one, I just love the connection that she was Mothma's cousin, and I want to highlight I love that Mothma is only this political person trying to kind of fight Imperial overreach on appearances, but then also fighting it kind of underneath, like I guess under the table, with trying to like fund these rebellious things. And I love the whole thing of like the Imperial, if she doesn't like work with this like known mobster, the Empire is going to figure out she's been funding rebellion activity, and she's going to go away and like not be able to help anymore. And so it's like she's having to break her own moral or ethical codes in order to serve a higher purpose. And like you see that at the final shot with her and her husband, and meeting their children, meeting with that guy's son. You know what I mean? Well,
that's the third angle to this, is that her husband is another fat cat who's bidding from the system that probably doesn't care if the Empire is running things or not, because he's rich and he gets to do what he wants.
Right.
And then he calls his wife boring, or this conversation boring or whatever. Yeah. And then their daughter, which is another crazy level. Their daughter has grown up in this system, and it's someone who's been in. It's like that's what happens when you grow up in systems. You see how the world works in that way, and you're told that's, especially from a communist kind of party. It's like it's all propaganda. You're constantly beat down on this is how things should be. Your life is so good because of this X, Y, and Z. And so like she is grown up into a system thinking that it's exactly what the Empire wants, is that girl. And so
she's following.
Can you imagine? Yeah, can you imagine, like, and she thinks she's done nothing wrong, and the thing is, she's not. I mean, her on a individual level of the show, she's not, but she's just in a system that's failing her in the universe, right? But
while I'm on the characters, I just need to shout out finally. The other two that just stick out it's Kyle Solar and Denise Go, but their characters are Deidre, Miro, and then Cyril. So the guard that's kind of gets everyone rounded up in the beginning to try to initially take the younger guy that's a part of the corporate that gets fired, gets sent to the other planet, and then comes back. And then I thought he was fantastic. And then Deidre, the Denise Go's character, the kind of main ISB lady, she was awesome. Like, I just thought, again, she felt like a highly ambitious person that just ended up working in the Empire almost. Like her desire is obviously just power and just control and power. She wants to be powerful, and she's really good. She's really smart. She's cunning. And she has a very, for being kind of like a not very menacing looking person, she has a very menacing presence that is I thought she knocked it out the park.
There is no way that those two don't knock boots in season 2.
Oh my god! Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like,
they were so close to kissing in the last episode. Like, cause the classic, "You saved my life," and like, "Oh, you're this thing. You're something I didn't know you were." And I mean, he is also like the slime. He's like the perfect slimy.
But he's such a good guy. You know what I mean? Like the classic good guy thing where it's like,
he's got like a porcelain like face, but his mom is obviously the worst.
Those were funny scenes. It very much reminded me of Sopranos and the grandmother on Sopranos with those scenes.
And so it's just like it seems like he is the if you have your protagonist, it seems like they're on a journey. He's also the antagonist. That's like
they're on Andor,
the opposite spectrum, right? You have all the other characters who are higher power, Stellan Skarsgård,
they're kind of
Martha,
yes.
They're like the upper, but they're starting at the same level on different trajectories.
They're kind of nobodies, and it feels like he's en route to be an ISB officer of some ilk or something, and obviously Andor's going to become a rebel hero, right? So
I just feel like
that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Will be Andor versus him, and then
I think you're right.
And then the last scene will be at full circle, and the last scene will be because that guy doesn't show up again in Star Wars, right? We know he doesn't make it. We know Cassian doesn't make it.
No.
That's Rogue One.
We know Cassian doesn't.
Yeah, and Tony Gilroy's already said the last scene of the show is him getting on that carrier and opening up, and Jyn Erso coming on. That's the last.
That's awesome.
So it's gonna perfectly book into Rogue One, right? And so, which is super challenging when you know the fate of a hero like that. It's something we talk about a lot on the podcast. It's like how do prequels give you context of like this character when you know their fate? And the answer we said back then, I think that this was also with Obi-Wan Kenobi, is that you build out the world and you also give context to things that are big events. Like in Rogue One's it is also a prequel that did this, right? You give context to the Death Star plans, like such a small little thing that's in the beginning of that movie in A New Hope, but you make it such a bigger deal. Like that little thing that R2-D2 is carrying is such an important thing, and a lot of people fucking died. That little thing that Skywalker has no idea. He doesn't even ask about. You just
tell really high quality stories around it with good characters, and that's 100%. That's the thing. Every single character. I have to shout out two more real quick. Fiona Shaw, who's Marva. Oh my god, loved her. She was great. And then I don't know who voiced the droid, the little droid that walked around. He was wonderful though, so precious and cute.
Do you think that he may be maybe not, but you get the K2SO, he's.
We saw one of those droids.
Yeah, he's going to be in season 2, and so you wonder if he's going to combine maybe the
the personality of that droid into a body of one of the things, or I can see it. That'd be interesting. Was that his voice? Was that Alan Tudyk doing the voice of the robot?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I just wonder.
I love that. I loved the personality of it. I love the design of it. I love that it felt very practical, how it moved and stuff. But yeah, I thought Marvel was great. But every single character, Bix, another great character, everyone felt like a real person that was the show and the world around them everything was taken seriously. There was no Tatooine character. There was no punk kids riding around on mopeds, right? There was nothing in this show that happened that was like, that felt weird, or that character didn't feel like they belonged here, or that scene felt very like fan servicey and not a fun way. You know what I mean? There was none of that. And so I think I love the show. I have no doubt season 2 is going to be amazing. Yeah. But for me, what the biggest thing about this is I want whoever's in charge at whatever level, whether it's Jon Favreau or whatever, needs to figure out, why did this show work so much better? Was it the massive amounts of time they probably had to write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite to make good content? If that's so, then start doing that for everything that isn't kids content, and maybe even that too. It's like, I feel like for me as a Star Wars fan, the problem with Andor is that if everything that comes after it isn't at least as good, I will be pretty damn disappointed.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, it's something we talk about a lot, is like what we talk about, the pandemic, everything else. And this show was announced, gosh dang,
so long ago, pre-pandemic, right?
Oh, yeah, 2018 at least. Wow. Yeah, the showrunner was announced in 2018. And so production started in 2019. So it's been 3, so we've been, I guess, season 2 for a while. But the big thing is, who was the original director for Rogue One? So also Dave Chapman was the voice of the droid. He also was the voice, or not, he puppeted BB-8 and everything. Big thing is Tony Gilroy was credited. He was uncredited.
Yes,
but we all know that he come in the final hours of Rogue One, and they reshot 20 to 30% of Rogue One and changed like the last act,
including the ending, right?
There was stuff in the trailers that never made it to the second batch of trailers, and that was a whole thing. And I think again, this is me speaking, but I think universally everyone loved Rogue One. Like I don't know a Star Wars fan who didn't. It's probably still the best Star Wars movie that Disney's put out.
Well, actually, I'll take that back. There are some people, I know of one we both know, that just hate it, and I don't understand these people.
Tell me who. I'll call them out.
Matthew Magdafrau. I know. I remember specifically, like he.
I forgot.
He actively thinks it's crap. Like not just like meh, like crap. And I just there and I will say like in the internet, anecdotally, I will say it is mostly praise, but there's always like 2 or 3 people in every thread that are just like this sucks.
Well, we're talking about first of all, we're not talking about a freaking Lars von Trier. We're talking about Star Wars. We're talking about like there
used to be a fun action movie.
There's a certain expectation for every genre and also every type of blockbuster to go into.
Yes,
you don't go into freaking. You want everything, but you don't go into like Spider-Man thinking you're going to get the Best Picture nomination. You know what I mean? It's just not gonna. It's not the same thing. But it's for a Star Wars movie. It's the best Star Wars movie that Disney's put out. I even though I do like the others, like I like Force Awakens, I like Solo's okay. I like Force Awakens, like I thought it was a great Star Wars movie. But I think Rogue One's all around. I'm like, I can't really pick out negatives about that movie that don't hurt the universe at least.
Right.
So Tony Gilroy come in, and he said basically, we kind of say he saved Rogue One in a lot of ways. He did rewrites and he shot another part of the movie. Gareth Edwards is credited as the director of that movie, which is he's also still a good director. But then the showrunner of The Americans is on, I can't think of his names. He left. Tony Gilroy come back again, and he rewrote the show, condensed it down into 2 seasons, and he's also the showrunner for Andor. And boy, what another great decision! Like this guy clearly gets spy thrillers, and he knows how to write good characters, and he knows how to keep a universe feel consistent, and I think again, what's interesting too, Daniel, and we'll get off here with this last thought, Disney, this is a case where Disney knew that they had something that was well written and that was good, like fired on all the creative cylinders, because they went so far as to like air episodes onto ABC. Right. They went so far as to put episodes on Hulu. So they took episodes from the exclusively on Disney Plus now to ABC Live and also now to Hulu. Yep. So they were like, and the census was, we've been hearing about these reports for the last couple of months, is that people aren't watching the show. And they're like, and so they're saying like, well, this is a good show, so we need to get more eyes on it. Sure. And I feel like people who stick with it and who are Star Wars fans, they have to be like, this is great. I don't know someone yet who has not liked the show that's a Star Wars fan.
No, I mean, I've seen some of the predictable complaints, like there's no lightsabers and or Jedi. But like that's been like the most consistent, like from people that are, I would say, like pretty hardcore fans are like, but I am not one of those people that feels like we need a lightsaber and a force pull in every piece of Star Wars content. There are some
I texted Matt whenever the show finished, and I said, look, I prefer Star Wars with lightsabers and Jedi and Sith and all that stuff. Like that's my prime Star Wars. Like I get giddy about that kind of stuff because it's cool and it's fun and it's just Star Wars. But I told him also, this may be the best Star Wars that's been ever made. Like in the universe, you know what I'm saying? Like, and those are two statements. They both can be true at the same time. Like I love Mandalorian. I love that we have the Grogu and we have the Darksaber. And like, if I could pick one or the other and I only get one, I would probably pick Mandalorian because I get the fun lightsaber stuff.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that Andor's not better. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, it's
on
a thing
like
of like
a creative level.
Yeah, I mean, I think I am not one that needs. I would trade all the lightsabers for amazing written stories, honestly, and pretty much any of the Disney. Like if the Disney trilogy was rewritten without lightsabers, but it was like a S tier writing and storytelling, give me that. I'll take it. You know what I mean? Like, but and here's the thing. I think what the thing about this show, about Andor, and I've seen this anecdotally very much online, is that people are saying you should watch this even if you have no interest in Star Wars. And I think that is one of the highest compliments, that people are putting this show up there with. I don't know if I would quite do it, but people are putting this show up there with like House of Dragon for the year, like their favorite shows, or like shows that they think are like the best shows of the year. You know what I mean? And that is huge for Disney. Like that's in some ways, again, the most like critical success that a piece of Star Wars, like maybe outside of the original trilogy, when like no one had ever seen something like this before, but like in terms of like the film snobs and the film critics' opinion of Star Wars, like this is probably the most respected piece of thing, because I mean essentially what you're watching is like a reskinned version of like watching the Nazis assert control, or watching like Soviet Russia, take creeping control and become like a dictatorship, or like you're essentially just watching really good stories, really good storytelling that I think anyone can connect to. Yes, if you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to extra appreciate all the little nods and references and the characters that we get to meet that we've seen before. But this is just good writing. Oh, can we just say again, the production design, the costuming, the colors of all of the people on Ferrix. It wasn't Tatooine, and it felt different, and I loved that. You know what I mean? I know that like Star Wars has a problem with like every planet is a single biome planet, right? Like every planet, desert planet, or water planet, or mountain planet. There's no planets like Earth in Star Wars where there's like actually different biomes in it. And so like even though we got like the hill planet for like the heist and stuff, like I thought it looked cool. It looks better than some of the stuff we have been getting on like alien planets from Star Wars shows. But like the production design in the show, it looked amazing. The cinematography looked fantastic.
It did.
The CGI
I don't know if
never
the
bothered.
volume was used on this show. I don't think it was used. I don't know. I think we talked about it.
Yeah, I mean,
it not being used. They went more practical this time,
and it looks
obviously there's CGI and there's green screen stuff. Of course there is. Which I mean, that's the thing too. When we had this conversation, I feel like recently about the volume almost is like getting some bad rep, at least between you and me. Like they're almost relying on it too much, but then like I think it's one of those things, like it's another tool, right? You can't rely on it solely.
Oh,
but you use it when you can. And like the Mandalorian,
well, the rule should be you use it when you have to. You use it when there's no practical, or at least within the realm of possibility, affordable way to do it in a more practical, I think, like way to shoot it. If you can shoot a scene in a really cool location instead of shooting it in the whatever the thing is, that should be the default, unless it would be impossible to like you're trying to shoot an impossible thing or something that can't be replicated practically, or that can't, you know what I mean? I just feel like it should be used. I mean, I think it'd probably be great for like, I wonder if they're like even doing like the practical ship models with like shooting. I mean, there's so many uses for that it could be great for. I just think when a show like Andor comes out and like every set, the Mothma's house, the interior of her house looked incredible, looked incredibly Star Wars, but also like recognizable in a way that felt good. I loved the dude's store. Luthen's store had a good look to it. Again, the colors on Ferrix, they were all wearing these like muted yellows and browns and oranges and reds, and it all just felt very thought through. It felt very like someone very thoroughly thought, how can we make this place feel like its own culture and own planet and own people and like and things that they do, how can we make it feel that way? And they just nailed it. So
just looking at
this show hits on like I'm having a hard time finding a cylinder this show didn't kind of fire on.
No, I agree. I mean, just right here it says that the Andor did not use the volume, and I guess one of the issues that's kind of come across is that the LED screens produce more of a softer light, and so like basically the actors don't have harsher, like if the sun's out, it's like it doesn't cast the same kind of intensity that the sun would actually cast, even though it's like it's still better than like nothing, right? So Here's a cool statement though. While The Mandalorian was particularly effective at minimizing this effect through practical sets that naturally cast shade over the performers, the prominence of exterior scene shots on the volume in Boba Fett and Kenobi suffer from a near identical visual flatness, which is true because like
that makes total sense thinking about those shows.
Thinking, I was like, especially Mandalorian is always inside and the volume looks really good. Not always, but a lot of times it's inside or there's like a dusk or it's like a shade kind of out exterior. Yeah. But Kenobi and fucking Boba Fett are on Tatooine where the fucking sun's out in the desert. So Tatooine is not good for the volume, I've determined based on this podcast.
Yes.
Seriously.
No, I agree. I mean, I think, but just to say again, like just Andor, there's very little. I mean, if I can point out flaws, again, it's that I think emotionally the show climaxed 2 episodes before the finale. Like that was the moment that I felt the most like just everything, and the finale didn't quite meet the energy that we got at the Prison of Escape intercut with Luthen's speech. I think that was just like, fuck, it was too good.
What as much as I like where the show ended because it really put.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's also a great argument to say that the show should have ended of like I can't swim, and then Andor gets pushed off into the water. Like whenever
it's definitely more of a cliffhanger. I mean, yeah. I mean,
it's literally a cliffhanger. But whenever Andy Serkis says I can't swim, it's like there's this. I don't know. I can't put on what that scene means to me yet. But it's almost like it's like someone saying I want to be free, but I don't know. I don't have all the tools yet to do it. It's like
I don't know if it's going to work.
It's going to work. And then Andor is forced off the cliff.
Yeah,
even though he was going off anyway.
Yeah,
so
right.
that's interesting. I mean, like he was. There's some metaphor there, 100%. But I agree with you, man. It's hard to find much complaint in it. I think that if there is any, it's that for the average Star Wars fan, maybe, and then maybe just that even the more casual viewer watching the first few episodes might feel like it's a little slow
until they get to the heist. It is a bit like it's a little slow.
Well, and once they get to the guard comes in, it's whenever he comes in and his conversation with Cassie about the technology, when that kind of gets in and you start kind of seeing like the spy stuff kind of come in more, like the first pocket of episodes, they're really kind of just setting up Cassian's character and the Empire.
They do a lot of those flashbacks to him being a kid on his planet.
And just kind of giving context to where his headspace is to maybe potentially do dangerous things. And I think it's whenever Skarsgård comes in, the show starts kind of coming alive, and I didn't realize he was in the show. I mean, I may have saw him in the trailer, but I forgot about it when I was like, oh shit, he's in this show. And I was elated, because he's in Thor and they, his last big role was in Avengers when he was kind of like a proxy for Loki. Right.
And
they don't really utilize him very well in those movies. He made a cameo in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah. No, I mean he's really still in the show. I could honestly see him getting more prominent roles after this because I feel like he has been kind of a character actor in so many ways. Like he's been the villain or these side like supporting characters. He's never. At least I'm not familiar with many roles other than like that Lars von Trier movie from the '90s. That like where he's like
that's not accurate. I mean
he's like the leading guy, and I know he's not the lead, and technically he's not the lead, but he feels like one of the protagonists in the show.
Yeah, I mean like he's not had a bad career. I mean look at he was in
Chernobyl.
He's the bad guy in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He's the Pirates. He's the dad in Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean he's always so funny.
Yeah, that's right.
He's always like been like you're right. He's never been the supporting lead. Yeah,
this is the most prominent that I felt like he's showing off in this show. That's what I'm saying.
Off. He's in everything. Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff.
But in this show, like he is like getting a lot of spotlight and like absolutely killing it. And I guess that to me, I could just see people watching that being like, oh wait, we need to get him in more leading or like prominent like main character roles. I think he's just showing that maybe
they just announced today as of recording this podcast that Dune Part 2 has finished filming as of like today or yesterday, and so he's in that.
Sweet.
And so which is like I thought that's a pretty quick turnaround they did, and I'm hoping that they get
true.
we get maybe we'll probably see it 2024 or is this 2023? I don't
late
know.
2023 maybe.
I would love to see if we get it. But last thing we'll end on here before we get off, Daniel, we sign off, is that I think it says right here that Andor. Let me look. I just had it. Second season began filming on November 21st, and it will last all the way until August 2023. And that Gilroy anticipates about a year of post-production. So we will probably get the show either at the end of 2024 or early 2025. We have a little bit of time before we probably talk about Andor again. We'll talk about it when we get other Star Wars stuff, and it's not as good as Andor, but we won't get to talk about Andor for a while. Yeah. Yes. I don't really know anything on the docket, honestly, besides, Taika had his movie, but also
Mandalorian 3, season 3.
Well, Mandalorian. So I don't know if Taika will actually get to do his movie anymore. We'll see. But Mando season 3.
They keep saying Rian Johnson's still got his trilogy whenever he has time to make it or something.
Yeah. Well, there's a big rumor going around that Kathleen Kennedy, after Indiana Jones 5 comes out, she's stepping down from president or CEO of Lucasfilm. So,
I can see that. I mean, she's been in the game a while.
She didn't for about 10 years now. She's been president. So
yeah. Just as a successful producer, she's been around a long time.
Oh yeah, as they say, you can't write the story of Hollywood without mentioning Kathleen Kennedy's name. E.T., Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, Star Wars. I mean, she's done everything. So she's an amazing producer. Whether you like the movies, these Star Wars movies or not, she's a great producer. She's just not a great creative for Star Wars. That's the difference. So I'm curious to see what happens. Obviously, Mando. Mando hasn't disappointed yet. Sure. Boba Fett did, in my opinion. Even though I enjoyed it, it didn't hit the highs as Mando does, and its storytelling techniques were just not great.
Boba Fett was a solid C for me, I think, and then Kenobi's a C plus only because of 2 moments. You know what I mean? That's the only thing for me Kenobi has over.
I may go a little higher on Boba Fett, but I'll say it's not what I would have done.
Boba Fett's a C until the last 2 episodes, and then it turns into a B for an episode, and then goes back down to a C. So it's weird,
The Mando episode's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The only problem with the Mando episode is that it's just not a season of Mando. It's just a single episode of both. The biggest critique of the Mando episode is that it's one episode. and that it doesn't do enough to fix everything else that's wrong with it, or make everything else worth it on its own. I mean,
and I feel like we've talked about this before, but it just it almost ruins the moment. It don't ruin it, but it's just it
makes Boba Fett feel not cool or powerful or capable.
Well, but it makes season 2 not feel as that felt
no, you're right. For him, it totally ruins the arc of season, or the ending and the emotional impact.
To separate them and I was like, man, Filoni and Favreau, you guys have big balls.
Yeah. And then it turns out they don't.
Someone, Disney overlords, or maybe it was fucking not sad, but
Baby Yoda has to be the most profitable piece of thing they've had since BB-8. You know what I mean?
It's even prior to BB-8. Probably.
You think he's more popular than BB-8? Probably is.
I would 100% bet money.
He is cute.
I mean, how many Yoda memes did we get at the beginning of 3 years ago?
When it's on everything, Baby Yoda merchandise is everywhere.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, I still think the best version of season 3 was Mando doing his thing, and then on throughout season 3 you have Luke training Yoda, and you getting the Grey Jedi philosophy stuff that tease up Ahsoka and everything else, but they condense all that into one episode. So which I don't know why.
Stop reminding me.
Anyway, I know. Anyway,
I don't want to relive these traumatic events. Our listeners can write into bit.ly/241mail. Let us know what you thought of Andor. I feel like we covered a lot because there was a lot to talk about. This season goes to a lot of places and deals with a lot of different characters doing a lot of different things. There are a lot of plot threads that all weave in and out of each other. And it's just, sometimes it feels like there was multiple seasons in this show because the first, up until getting to jail feels like its own season. Then everything after kind of feels like its own It's interesting. But yeah, write in write in and tell us what you thought about Andor. Was there something that you loved that we missed and didn't highlight? Did you find something wrong with it? I mean, I guarantee you didn't, and you're not seeing things correctly. But if you think you want to shoot your shot, bit.ly/241mail.
And if you can't hit up our bit, you can always find us at youtube.com/241studios in the comment section below. Leave a comment there, talk about all the things Daniel just blurted out. And last thing, Daniel, I like the idea of having these pockets of storytelling, right? I think I saw this initially actually in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can't remember what they were calling them, but they're every 3 or 4 episodes is its own arc, and I like that, and it feels like things don't get really stale. You're kind of dealing with different characters and different locations and different things like that, and I think it's a smart idea to kind of condense this what was 5 down into 2. It's working right now, so
because you could so easily see these being the first 3 episodes establishing Andor could have been a season. The next 3 episodes with dealing with the house or dealing with the heist, that's a season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Prison's probably a half a season alone, if not a full season.
Yeah, exactly. And again, even with these blocks, it feels slow in some places because it's a different type of genre. It's a spy show. It's more Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy than the Bourne is sometimes. Bourne, that's an
It's not an action. Bourne. It's not an action show. It's a political, spy thriller. Political spy thriller. Yeah. That's what I'd call it. Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah. It's great.
Well, Daniel, I'm glad we talked about Star Wars. I think on the docket we have the Game Awards and just our favorite gaming moments of the year coming out next. We have Avatar. We have Mando coming out again, starting in the new year in 2023. And somewhere on the mix to celebrate episode 150, Bruce Hutchinson will be back. Dr. Bruce Hutchinson will be back on to talk Avengers Endgame. We celebrated episode 100, talking Infinity War. And 50 episodes later, we're going to round it out and talk about potentially the peak of the MCU and where it has fallen.
Sounds fun and depressing.
My name is Donovan Thompson.
And I'm Daniel Wingfield.
And we have spoken.